Hello poetry students, this is our class on poetic meter, which is a little bit complicated, but once you get the hang of it, you learn to develop an ear for it. So just try your best and see if you can follow the rhythm that is natural to the English language. So it's something that we do subconsciously. I'm just trying to make you conscious of it. You'll remember our discussion of rhyme. We talked about feminine and masculine rhymes, which has to do with strong and weak syllables. That's how we measure or how we identify a rhythm of a particular poem. And we mark strong. Here I have my name written here. I hope you can see it. Daniel. If I say it like that, the Dan is a strong and Niel is a weak syllable. So for the strong syllable, you just want a solid dash, and then a little cup for the weak syllable. That's how you mark the syllable stress on words, and this will become clear as we go through. Mapping out the syllables strong and weak on a poem is called a scansion. Alright, so we're going to learn how to do a scansion on a poem. It determines where the accents are and what the prevailing meter, if there is one, of a poem is. A meter obviously is a pattern set up by regular rhythm. Some poems, usually older poems, have it. Modern poems, free verse, blank verse poems, tend not to have any regular or prevailing meter or rhythm. A foot is a unit of rhythm, and normally a foot consists of 2 syllables. Sometimes it can consist of 3, and I'll try to make that clear here in a minute. So what I want you to do is to turn to, or to have the handout that I sent you ready, and it's called Examples of Iambs, Trochees, Spondees, Dactyls, and Anapaests. And this, hopefully this will make it clear. They didn't really use the right type for the symbols here. They have a U instead of a little cup. They just don't have that. Where I got this from, they didn't have the correct graphic, but you can kind of see what's going on. So there are a lot of words in the English language that are naturally iambs or iambic, meaning weak, strong, so that da-da, da-da. And if you look at this grouping here, we have behold, amuse, arise, awake, return, Noel, la la, la la, depict, destroy, inject, inscribe, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. You can see all the examples here. Of mice and men, la la, la la. Naturally iambic, and this accounts for about 60% of the English language. It is the most prevailing rhythm. Look at the last example in that grouping. The south will rise again. La 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 la. Weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. This is iambic meter. The reason we know it's iambic is if you try to reverse the stress and turn it into strong, weak, listen to how weird these words sound. Instead of behold, amuse, arise, awake, we have behold, amuse, arise, awake, return, Noel. It doesn't work. It doesn't sound natural. These are naturally iambic words, weak, strong constructions. The opposite of that, and it does exist about 40% of time in the English language, or let's say 30%, are trochees or trochaic constructions. This is the exact opposite. This is strong, weak. Look at the words in this section. Happy, hammer, Pittsburgh, nugget, double, incest, injure. Lala, strong, weak, strong, weak. Dr. Wheeler, Douglas County, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. These are naturally trochaic words. If you try to reverse the stresses, it too sounds weird. Instead of happy, hammer, Pittsburgh, we'd have happy, hammer, Pittsburgh. Doesn't work. Doesn't sound natural. So these are naturally iambic or trochaic words, and each of those doublings, happy would be a single foot, hammer would be a single foot, Douglas County would be 2 feet. So you got 2 groups of 2. Then you have words, depending on how we speak, this will shift slightly between us because we all speak and pronounce differently. Then you have words that you can't tell if they are trochaic or iambic. They almost sound like they have two strong syllables. And those are called spondies. And look at this group. Football, I kind of say like a trochee, football. So I have a strong syllable. You might do them equally, football. Maybe there's a difference between American and English pronunciation. But the others here, Mayday, D-Day, heartbreak. There's no weak, strong, strong, weak. They're both equally strong. Key West, shortcake. Sorry, this is from an English site. Plop, plop just means poo-poo. Dead man, dumbbell. Here we have groupings of two, which would be a foot, where they're equally strung. So we call those spondies. Then we have instances where there are three syllables in a foot. And here's where it occurs naturally in the English language. So we have a dactyl or dactylic rhythm, which is strong, weak, weak. La la la, la la la, la la la. Here are the words: carefully, strong, weak, weak. Changeable, merrily, mannequin, tenderly, prominent, buffalo, Bellingham. Let's look at some scorpion, Indian, Napolis, la la la, la la la. So this occurs naturally in the English language as well. Dactylic constructions, not as often as iambic or trochaic, but it does happen. And then the opposite of that is an anapest or anapestic rhythm. Instead of strong, weak, weak, it's weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, strong. You can see the grouping here: understand, la la la, interrupt, comprehend, anapest, New Rochelle, contradict, get a life. Now we might have slightly different variations on that. You might say get a life, so you might turn it into a dactyl. In the blink of an eye, la la la, la la la. This is naturally anapestic. So that's an illustration. Hopefully this helps hear the rhythmic structure or the metric structure of how English works naturally. And of course poets then take that and build larger rhythmic poems around these types of rhythms. So those are the rhythm types. Let's see how it works in poetry. If you turn to 911 in the book, you'll see the Bradstreet poem on the bottom there. And if you just read it naturally, you might be able to hear the rhythm. If ever two were one, then surely we. La 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 la. What is that? Weak, strong, weak, strong. If ever two were one, then surely we. If ever man were loved by wife, then thee. Weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. So this is naturally an iambic poem. Alright, and it goes all the way through. If ever wife was happy in a man. If you turn it the other way around and change the stress, listen to how weird it sounds. Instead of if ever two were one, it's if ever two were one, then surely we. It doesn't work. Alright, so it's not trochaic. It's not strong, weak. It's definitely weak, strong. So there's a poem that's just naturally iambic all the way through. If you turn to well, if you look above at the Taylor poem that we looked at before for our first class on rhyme scheme, you see twinkle, twinkle, little star, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak, strong. How I wonder what you are. This is naturally trochaic. It's the opposite to the poem underneath it. If you turn that around, instead of twinkle, twinkle, little star, you have twinkle, twinkle, little star. It doesn't sound natural anymore. So you can hear, hopefully you can start hearing where poems are naturally iambic and or trochaic, and that's the majority of metric poems. Every once in a while you come across an anapestic poem or a dactylic poem, but not usually through the whole poem. It's usually just sections of it. It's not as a prevailing rhythm as trochaic or iambic. If you look at the page before, the famous Alfred Lord Tennyson poem about the charge of the Light Brigade during the Crimean War, you'll hear groups of 3 rather than 2. So there's 3 accents per foot. So you have half a league, half a league, half a league onwards. Strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak. So here we have an example of a dactylic construction. And notice it doesn't last through the whole poem. Not everything is dactylic here. A lot of it is half a league, half a league. That's 2 feet. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Half a league, and then you have onward, which is different, right? So you have a dactyl on line 1, a dactyl, 2 dactyls in a row, and then you have a dactyl on line 2, and then you just have onward, which is a trochee. So a lot of times dactylic poems don't stay in that rhythm. It's hard to stay in that rhythm because only certain words will work. Some people have managed to do it. It's not in the book, but there's a poem by Christina Rossetti that starts out like this: by the sea, by the sea, by the beautiful sea, la 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 la. So you have it starts out anapestic, weak, weak, strong, weak, weak, strong. And then the second line, she adds the word down. So it's down by the sea, by the beautiful sea. And it turns into dactylic, strong, weak, weak. I realize this is difficult to teach online, but hopefully you're getting some of it. And there are sections in the book that describe this as well. So here we have examples of naturally iambic, trochaic, and sections of poems that can be anapestic or dactylic. Sometimes you have a break in the meter to kind of break up the sing-song element of a poem, and here on 911 you can see this is done by punctuation: twinkle, comma, twinkle, comma, little star. So instead of da 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 da, you have sort of a break with punctuation. We call that a caesura, which means to cease. So the poet's trying to stop you from just going into that sing-song mode by adding some punctuation and breaking the rhythm. In the Bradstreet poem we have it too: if ever two were one, comma, then surely we. So it breaks up the rhythm a little bit and gives a little bit of variance. We call that a caesura, usually done with punctuation or end dashes or something like that. Sometimes you get a poem that crams in an extra syllable at the beginning of a line. If you turn to page 935, I'll edit out these bits. If you turn to the Samuel Coleridge poem on page 935, Frost at Midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines down. So you have this prevailing rhythm. The frost performs in its secret ministry, unhelped by the wind. The owlet's cry came loud, and hark again, loud as before. Not strictly iambic, but it has mostly iambic. And then on line 10, an extreme. You have an extra syllable that's jammed in front of the iambic line. And we call that an anacrusis. Sometimes you just have an extra syllable that's popped in at the beginning of a line. That breaks the rhythm a little bit as well. If you turn to back to your handout, to the mixed meter with iambic feet page, I'll show you how this breaks into feet. Maybe I'll do that on the next video because we're running into a second video. So just queue up the next one and we'll continue.